All right, welcome back to our Genealogy of Ideas series. This is where we trace the creative family trees of some of the most fascinating thinkers out there. Today, we're diving deep into the mind of investor and philosopher Naval Ravikant. We're going to map out how his personal history, his failures, and even his biggest psychological hangups shaped his entire philosophy on wealth and life. Let's kick things off by digging into the one trait he says cost him the most.
So what's the one thing that holds even the most brilliant people back? For Naval Ravikant, it was a single trait that cost him more time, more money, and more freedom than literally anything else. A trait that, well, it traps you in the past and completely stunts your growth.
But, and here's the crazy part, the very thing that was his biggest weakness actually became the foundation for his most profound wisdom. In this explainer, we're going to deconstruct how Naval learned to turn his biggest failures and his own psychological blocks into his greatest strengths. We're going to build his creative family tree right here from the roots all the way up. You know, every great tree has to start with strong roots. And for Naval, the bedrock of his entire mindset wasn't built in some fancy business school or from technical skills. Nope. It was something way more fundamental, something forged way back in his childhood.
But here's what's so interesting about that. This confidence wasn't about being told he was always right. It was actually the exact opposite. He says it wasn't the confidence that he had the answer, but the deep, unshakable confidence that he could figure it out. That unconditional love gave him the self-belief to face pretty much any problem, not because he was perfect, but because he knew he could learn and adapt.
So, with those roots of self-belief planted firmly in the ground, let's move up to the trunk of the tree. This is the core philosophy that guided all of his major life decisions, especially his choice of what game to play in his career. Naval basically saw the world as two totally different games. On one side, you've got status games. These are combative, right? Think of climbing the corporate ladder or social hierarchies. For you to go up, somebody else has to get pushed down. It's a zero-sum game. But on the other side, you have wealth creation. This is a positive-sum game. You can build something that creates value for everyone. We can all win together. Naval made a very deliberate choice to play the wealth game.
So how do you win the wealth game? Well, it's not by being better than everyone else. It's by being more yourself. And this is a huge point. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can compete with you at being you. When you find what feels like play to you but looks like work to other people, you tap into this unique advantage that just can't be copied. Your authenticity becomes your ultimate edge.
But of course, no tree grows perfectly straight. Every journey is filled with setbacks and failures, what we can think of as broken branches. And this brings us right back to Naval's single most expensive trait, the one that caused the most damage along his path. He calls this trait pride, but he defines it in a very specific way. This isn't confidence or self-esteem. This is the kind of pride that makes you refuse to admit you messed up. It's the absolute enemy of learning because it locks you into your past decisions, trapping you right where you are. And this shows the real-world cost of that pride. It's what makes you hold on to a losing stock, just refusing to cut your losses. It's what keeps you in a job you absolutely hate because you don't want to admit you made the wrong choice. You basically become a hostage to your past self, stuck on a small peak, unable to go back down to find a much higher mountain. And the ultimate price you pay is in time, your most valuable and totally finite resource. Okay, so if pride is the disease that breaks the branches, what's the cure? This is where Naval's philosophy gets really, really powerful. It's not about trying to avoid failure. It's about learning how to graft those broken branches, turning your wounds into the absolute strongest parts of the tree. So the central question becomes this: how do you transform a costly failure into a source of future strength? How do you make that dead wood sprout new life? Well, it requires a specific and, yeah, sometimes painful process. Naval's process is really the art of starting over. First, you have to embrace the idea that all knowledge is just error correction. I mean, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning anything. Second, you have to detach from your past self. Who you were yesterday does not have to dictate who you are today. And finally, and this is the hardest part for sure, you have to be willing to go back to zero. He points out that the greatest artists are the ones who can tear it all down and just start again from a blank canvas. Now, to create the space for this kind of reinvention, Naval adopts a strategy that, I'll admit, sounds pretty harsh, but it's essential. He advocates for a really radical form of self-prioritization. This isn't about being a jerk. It's about creating the freedom you actually need to learn and grow.
He calls it holistic selfishness. It means saying no by default. It means clearing your calendar of obligations that your past self committed you to. By ruthlessly guarding your time and energy, you free yourself up to focus, to explore, and to start over whenever you need to. It's a strategy that leads not just to more productivity, but to more happiness and a lot more freedom.
So there you have it. We've got Naval's tree, rooted in unconditional love, with a trunk built on playing positive-sum games, and branches made strong by grafting the lessons of failure right onto them. But hey, the goal of this series isn't just to admire someone else's tree. It's to help you cultivate your own. And here is the final, most crucial point. We can study Naval's framework, but we can't inherit his wisdom. Wisdom isn't something you can just read in a book or learn from an explainer like this one. It's the set of lessons that are unteachable. They have to be learned through your own experience, your own context, and your own failures.
So I want you to think about this for yourself. What are the roots of your own idea tree? Who gave you that foundational confidence? Now, look at your life right now. Are you playing zero-sum status games, or are you playing positive-sum wealth creation games? And most importantly, think about a broken branch, a failure that cost you big time. How can you graft that lesson and make it a source of strength?
I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on. Because buried inside the answer to that question is the blueprint for your own unique wisdom, your own creative genealogy. What's the one failure that, looking back, you wouldn't trade for anything? Because that's where your greatest growth lies.